Have you ever sat there chuckling away at a classic British sitcom and thought, you know what this needs? An American makeover. No, well, some American studios think they do, but sometimes those transatlantic translations didn't quite land. In this video, we're looking into the history of 4 iconic British comedies that were remade across the pond. So grab a cuppa, settle in, and let's have a good laugh at these well-intentioned but ultimately unsuccessful remakes. Appropriately at number 16 in the ranker.com list of the best all-time British sitcoms is the high school cringe fest, The In-Betweeners. Adolescence is an awkward time for anyone, but these 4 lads manage to take their cringe-worthy teenage experiences to a whole new level. As they stumble through the perils of teen life, their misguided attempts to fit in and find love result in side-splitting blunders, earning them a special place in the hearts of viewers. American broadcaster ABC must have been confident of success when they contracted Ian Morris and Damon Beasley, writers of The In-Betweeners, to write an American version of the show, with a guarantee of a pilot being made. Morris and Beasley moved out to Los Angeles to visit US high schools and research and write the script for a pilot. Damon Beasley was reported as telling The Hollywood Reporter, "We want to do a comedy about the reality of high school, how pedestrian life can be at that age. It's an awkward age when you're trying to break the shackles, but you can't achieve your grand plans. You're not equipped to do that." It seems the project was unsuccessful and eventually abandoned. It's not known even if the pilot was made. Because it was what was known as a put pilot, the studio was under an obligation to make a pilot or pay a penalty fee to the writers. In September 2010, MTV announced that it had hired comedy writer Brad Copeland, known for his writing on American comedies such as Arrested Development and My Name is Earl, to write a script for an American In-Betweeners series. Taika Waititi was chosen to direct the pilot. Writers of the original series, Damon Beasley and Ian Morris, were contracted as executive producers. However, their participation was minimal. Ian Morris said, "They took the scripts and played with them, but we didn't get a say over anything." In March 2011, MTV officially announced that it had picked up The In-Betweeners for an additional 11 episodes, creating a 12-episode first series. It ran on MTV from August to November 2012. US censorship rules mean the swearing in the remake was bleeped, and the Telegraph's 1-star review was among those to criticise the themes of friendship and bonding that made it feel like an episode of The Wonder Years. "None of the guys in the American version are quite as interesting as their British counterparts," said the Boston Globe, which felt the show falls in the middle of the quality scale. The paper said it lacked some of the texture and distinction of the British comedy, but did have a refreshing sincerity. Hollywood.com said, "I heartily recommend The In-Betweeners as the most hilariously accurate depiction of everything that sucks about high school. Plain and simple, this is MTV's best comedy since the days of Daria and reaffirms the network as the best in the business for reaching the high school crowd." The Chicago Tribune described it in its headline as "kinda wimpy." While a second season was originally planned, MTV decided to end the series. Similarly, a planned American adaptation of the In-Betweeners movie was also cancelled. Clearly, MTV had high hopes for the show, as they were planning to show the series on its worldwide channels from January 2013. MTV executives said, "While we won't be moving forward with another season of The In-Betweeners, we enjoyed working with the show's creators and such a talented, funny cast." According to Amal Rajan, what that really meant was the show wasn't very good, the ratings were even worse, and there's not an Ice Cube's chance in hell that we'd spin a profit out of it. One report said it was scrapped on the grounds that it was intolerably bland. It was also stated that the failure of the remake is nothing to do with the Americans not getting irony. It's just British teenage life is much dirtier than the American imagination can bear. American TV does portray 16 to 19-year-old boys in a more flattering light. The peccadillos and pimples are there, but a veneer of clean living dominates their personalities. In-Betweeners USA premiered on MTV in the UK in August 2012. Reviewer for The Digital Spy, Morgan Jeffrey, said, "Well, it's not terrible, but currently it's not great either." He described Will, played by Joey Polari, as bland. When the stars of the original show were interviewed by New Musical Express in 2023, Simon Bird said, "It was just too sort of glossy, wasn't it? The cast was just too handsome. I mean, look at us." Joe Thomas agreed, "You've got to cast weirdos." The number 14 best ever British sitcom is a rare outer space story, Red Dwarf. This mostly low-budget sci-fi comedy attained worldwide cult status. It features the last human alive, a humanoid cat, a hologram pal and a service android. As they navigate an array of bizarre encounters and cosmic calamities, their misadventures offer plenty of interstellar humour. First, an apology. To do justice to the Red Dwarf USA saga would take an hour or more, so I do hope dwarfers and smegheads alike will understand this relatively brief account. Universal Studios and NBC were interested in making an American version of the show. What probably convinced series creators and writers Rob Grant and Doug Naylor to go to the States was that Universal were interested in a Red Dwarf movie, something that Grant and Naylor were very keen on. However, the movie was never to materialise. Grant and Naylor had just completed filming Series 5 and headed out to the States to join a team who'd already begun work on the American pilot. Officially, Linwood Boomer, the future creator of Malcolm in the Middle, had written the script. The main issue seemed to be the number of writers adding jokes. Robert Llewellyn reckoned there were 14. The large writer's room style of comedy script writing just did not suit Red Dwarf as a show. The first draft script clearly had a lot of talented people working on it, but Naylor described the script as a botched, horrible version of the pilot. The original understanding had been that none of the UK cast would be reprising their roles. The casting caused repercussions in the UK. While filming Series 5, Craig Charles was chatting to makeup artist Andrea Finch and asked what show she was working on next. "Oh, I'm going to America with Robert to do the Red Dwarf American show." I think we can all imagine Craig raising to his full 5'7" to exclaim, "The what?" Yes, along with Grant and Naylor, going to the States was Robert Llewellyn, who played Crichton in the original show and now cast in the same role in the new version, with Andrea Finch to do his specialised robot makeup. No one had told the rest of the British cast. To his credit, Llewellyn said he was initially nervous about signing a contract, but decided that a chance to make it in America was an opportunity not to be missed. Due to creative differences between the British and American producers, Rob Grant left, citing too much interference from Universal and unfunny scripts being pushed onto them, leaving Doug Naylor to, go boldly. Naylor was also unimpressed with the casting, which was one of the reasons why it was altered for the second pilot. Oh yeah, the first pilot is doomed to failure, sorry to spoil the surprise. So, with Crichton sorted, how about the other crew members? What on earth, or in outer space, could substitute for Liverpudlian Craig Charles's slobby, curry-chomping Lister? Of course, the exceptionally handsome, designer-stubbled actor Craig Bierko. I bet he's never even heard of a Vindaloo. OK, how about snooty hologram Arnold Rimmer? Chris Eigerman, actually on paper, not a bad choice. He had a diverse career in both film and television, often playing characters with a distinctively dry wit and intelligence, so turning the charm to 0 should not be a problem for him. Then there's Kat. Wow, here we have a breakthrough, a performer revered by Danny John Jules, choreographer and Tony Award-winning actor Hinton Battle. He couldn't fail, could he? Battle was one of Danny's heroes. He was a Broadway sensation. He had 3 Tonys. This guy was the man, Danny exclaimed when he found out. In conversation one day, Rob told Danny that he spotted Hinton Battle looking a bit downcast. He asked if everything was okay. "Yeah, it's just that the other guy was so good," he replied. Danny was stunned. "I'm like, man, it doesn't matter now. Hinton Battle has given me the green light." Well, Danny was happy, but back in America it was not all smiles. Naylor concluded the script was not up to scratch, and in an act of rebellion only matched by Lister's constant insistence he could play the guitar, Grant and Naylor rewrote the script overnight. The cast much preferred their new version. However, during the rehearsal process there were changes, which is not unusual, until eventually the script closely resembled the hated original by Linwood Boomer and the writer's room. During filming of the pilot, the studio audience reaction was good and everyone felt the show had been well received. However, later test audiences were not so impressed. 3 weeks after the pilot was filmed, as the pilot had not gone down well, the project needed to be rescued. It was not all bad news. Linwood Boomer had to call Chris Eigerman and Hinton Battle to break the news they would not be returning. And then he was fired himself. The studio executives decided to give the project another chance, with Grant and Naylor in charge. Brilliant. Suppose they'd done that in the first place. However, this would be a 50-minute promo video with new cast members for the roles of Cat and Rimmer. Danny was approached to reshoot the pilot, but he was committed to appear in a play at the Old Vic. Chris Barry was also asked to reprise Rimmer, but he declined, feeling nervous about the prospect of signing a Hollywood-style contract. Rob and Doug used this opportunity to change Cat. He was now a female and more overtly sexual and fearless than Battle or John Jules versions. The role was given to Terry Farrell and Anthony Fusco was Rimmer. Now the people that knew what they were doing could get the lighting and sets right, overcome issues with the problematic split screen shots, and ditch the theme music written by Todd Rundgren. Included in the pitch for the American series along with the promo video were several scripts for potential future episodes. Robert Llewellyn had already returned to the UK and didn't shoot any new material for the promo. The promotional reel was unsuccessful in prompting sufficient interest in the series, and NBC never picked up the series. Neither version of the pilot has ever been broadcast, though both pilots have been heavily bootlegged. The original Series 5 DVD release includes a documentary on the making of the pilots, Dwarfing USA, which includes footage from the first version pilot, but not the second, as the BBC was unable to obtain the licensing rights to it. The documentary includes Craig Charles criticising the second pilot as being white dwarf due to the lack of any black actors in it. The original show is now massively popular on PBS stations across the States. A new UK series was supposed to be filming in 2024, but in early 2025 there were reports of concerns over the cost of production, preventing the production from going ahead, and there still isn't a feature film. For the 11th best ever British sitcom, we're going down to the basement where we will find the IT crowd. After you've turned it off and on again, this bunch of mismatched personalities with an inability to handle actual human beings while avoiding doing any work make for a series full of cringe-inducing comedy. It seems the Americans were in a rush to make the IT crowd. Their first pilot was in production as soon as the first series of the UK original had aired. In fact, NBC Universal Television and Fremantle, one of the co-producers of the original show, were in such a hurry they didn't even tell creator and writer Graham Linehan. He later told the Sitcom Geeks podcast, "The first was done without my knowledge. I still don't know how that happened." Which is even more odd when you consider that Richard Ayoade went to America to reprise his role as the nerdy IT guy with the asymmetrical bouffant. Ayoade later revealed on the Graham Norton show, "I was the only one dumb enough to do it," he said. "It was deeply weird. It was like a play where everyone else had left. It was very odd." Replacing the scruffy, lovable IT geek that Chris O'Dowd had played so flawlessly was the clean-cut, stereotypically beautiful Joel McHale, O'Dowd's polar opposite. The pilot was essentially a remake of the original series' first episode with a nearly identical script and identical set. The only thing that was not identical was the outcome. Perhaps that was because Graham Linehan wasn't involved. A full series was commissioned by NBC after the pilot had been recorded, but the pilot was never broadcast and the series ditched before the other episodes, many already written, had even gone into production. Steve O'Brien wrote in Digital Spy, "Why did they even bother? It's a colossally pointless remake of the first episode, only set, well, in America. Other reviewers agreed that it was too much like the British version, so why not just watch the original? One even characterised it as an insult to the original show. The pilot was leaked onto the internet, but most traces seem to have been removed." The Americans were not the only ones to transport the show outside of the UK. In 2008, a German adaptation of the show was made by Grundy Light Entertainment, titled Das I-Team, der Jung und der Maus, the I-Team, the Boys and the Mouse. It was almost literally the original scripts translated into German. It was so poorly received, broadcaster Sat1 cancelled showing the series after just 2 of the 6 episodes had been aired. NBC were not deterred by their failure in 2008 and commissioned a second adaptation of the IT Crowd produced by Bill Lawrence in 2014. This time they had Graham Linehan on board as writer alongside Neil Goldman and Garrett Donovan, who had previously written for Scrubs, Family Guy and Community. However, Linehan didn't stay long in America. After a week he left due to the different approach Goldman and Donovan had with the script. In case you were wondering, Richard Ayoade ruled himself out of appearing in this remake. However, some reports say that the pilot featured Chris O'Dowd, who played Roy in the original, in a different role with Joel McHale returning as Roy. It's not even clear if the pilot was even made. There certainly was not a series. After NBC's 2 failed attempts, obviously they were not going to try again with production company Universal Television. Oh, they were. But this time it was going to work, as this time Graham Linehan was involved. He said, "This time round I pitched it myself," adding, "I'm completely involved." Broadcast magazine Variety reported that Linehan would write and executive produce a reimagining. Linehan confirmed the news on Twitter, responding to the Variety report by posting, "Oh yeah, working on it. Don't expect the same kind of show and everyone will be happy." Will they? Everyone? I'm not so sure. In a Sitcom Geeks podcast, Graham Linehan said, "We'll have Rick Mayall falling down the stairs, breaking every banister. They'll have these people having a series of snappy conversations, making you think these are the funniest people in the world. You have to adjust for it. Not moving the furniture around, it's deep structural changes." Linehan's involvement was seen by many as a positive sign, potentially indicating a greater chance of capturing the original show's spirit. However, despite his involvement, this attempt also failed to materialise into a full series. It seems the unique chemistry of the original British IT Crowd, particularly the performances of Chris O'Dowd, Richard Ayoade and Catherine Parkinson, along with Graham Linehan's specific writing style, has been a difficult formula to replicate successfully for American television audiences. At the time of making this video, there are strong rumours about a movie of the IT Crowd being in development. In 10th place of the best ever British sitcoms is Dad's Army. During World War II, a group of bumbling volunteers unite to defend the home front. Despite their limitations and clear unsuitability for the task, their unwavering patriotism and camaraderie make for some truly heartwarming and hilarious moments. Bursting with memorable catchphrases and impeccably timed slapstick, this sitcom stands as an enduring tribute to the resilience of the British spirit. In 1975, Jimmy Perry and David Croft travelled to Hollywood as they'd sold the rights for an American adaptation of the show. The pilot for ABC television was based on the script of the famous episode The Deadly Attachment, in which the Home Guard have to look after a captured U-boat crew. In the American version, the action takes place on Long Island. The show was titled The Rear Guard and was adapted by US comedy writer Arthur Julian. He decided to swap around some of the characters' personas and merge some other characters. In this version, Mannering's original lines are mostly given to Sergeant Raskin, who is Sergeant Wilson's equivalent. The sergeant is built up to be a tougher and louder than the gentle Sergeant Wilson. Mannering is rewritten as Captain Rosati, an Italian-American who loves the sound of his own voice. He is full of gusto and can't wait to get to grips with German prisoners or any enemy. Of course, there is a Pike character. Henderson is an equally stupid, soppy-looking boy. Don Crawford replaces Private Walker. The wide boy ladies man is a Hollywood actor who has dodged the draft on medical grounds. The characters of Private Godfrey and Jones were missing, but their traits are found in Wagner, a new recruit to the platoon. The result is something which resembles Dad's Army, but does not directly impersonate it. The pilot episode was only screened once in America on channels 7 and 8 at 10 p.m. on Tuesday the 10th of August 1976. As it was considered a failure, the original tapes were wiped, although the director and producers had copies. Producer Herman Rush had sketched out ideas for 8 more storylines if the series had gone ahead, only the pilot would have been based on an actual Dad's Army original script. So, never repeated, but the producers had copies, so that means so did Jimmy Perry. However, because it was recorded in the American NTSC format, he'd not been able to play it, so he threw it out. Enter the New Zealand branch of the Dad's Army Appreciation Society. In 1999, Dave Homewood, who was running the branch at the time, contacted the show's director Hal Cooper. He still had his videotape copy, so a copy was made for the society and another was made in PAL format for Jimmy Perry, who was ecstatic to hear this lost chapter in his show's history was recovered. Footage from the rear guard was included in a 2004 DVD set, although it's only available in Region 2 encoding. The core concept that drove the humour of Dad's Army, the absurdity of unprepared civilians facing a formidable enemy, might have been lost in translation to a cultural context with a different wartime experience and a different understanding of civilian defence efforts. The case of the rear guard serves as a compelling example of the difficulties in adapting culturally specific and highly successful television shows for different national audiences. It underscores the importance of not just transplanting a concept, but also carefully translating the nuances of humour, character and cultural context to ensure the adaptation resonates with the new target audience. The success of the original Dad's Army was no guarantee of success for the rear guard, highlighting the complex interplay of cultural factors that contribute to a television show's reception. Right, well that just about wraps it up for our little dive into the land of transatlantic telly that, well, didn't quite land. It just goes to show that sometimes that special British charm is a bit tricky to bottle and ship across the pond. Let me know in the comments which of these you found most interesting, and if there are any other gems you've seen, get the American makeover. Cheers for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.